Hello everybody and welcome to the 6th episode in the AorbTech Pandas series. Today we're going to be looking at the fillna method. In this episode we're going to be looking at how to fill by value. We're going to be looking at some fill methods, forward fill and backwards fill. Then we're going to be looking at changing the fill axis, so by column or by row. We're going to be setting limits for our fill, and we're going to be using in place. So let's get into it. Let's start by importing pandas, create a code block, and import pandas. There we go. Let's start with looking at what the fillna method actually does. Basically, if we have missing data inside our data set, what we can do is we can replace it with something else. That's what it does. That something else, in this case, in this example being x. To demonstrate this, let's really quickly take a look at a data set. So we'll open up a CSV file. We're going to set it to the variable zoo. We're going to use pandas.readCSV. And I think this is a markdown. So let's create a code block. And let's just print it. Or let's view it real quick just to see what it looks like. There we go. So as you can see, wherever we have a missing value, we just have NaN, which is something that's recognized by pandas. If you want to figure out how to normalize this so that, for example, if you had a question mark here or something else that pandas doesn't understand, we have an episode on how to do that, and I think that's the previous episode, so you can go check that out. Let's go to value. So if we want to replace one of these, what we can do is we can simply replace the missing values with our own value. Maybe it makes it easier for us to see. So assuming we have a normalized data set here, let's create a code block. And what we're going to do is we're going to have zoo.fillna. That's the method we want to use. And then we're going to put in a value for x, right? So let's say we want each missing value to be replaced with the words missing value, and that'll make it really clear where they are. As you can see, every single value that we had that was previously NaN has been replaced with what we put in here, so missing value. We can also fill it in with a number, for example, if we want to. So we can put in the number 7. And as you can see, we have missing values being replaced with the number 7. We can also do this using a dictionary. So let's create a code block here. Let's take a look at our zoo. As you can see, for each of these columns, we have different data types. For example, for animals, we're likely storing these using strings. And for daily visitors, we're likely storing these using doubles or floats. So when we want to replace missing values here with our own values, it's important to take into account what data types are present, right? So what we can do is, for each column, we can individually set what we want the missing value to be. And we can do that by using a dictionary with key-value pairs, where the keys are the columns and the values are the values that we're going to replace with the missing values in our data sets. So let's demonstrate that. We'll have zoo use the fillna method, and then we're going to use braces to create our dictionary. And here is where the fun begins. So let's start with the animal column. If there were missing values here, we would like to probably replace them with unknown. Then we can create another key value pair. Let's look at daily visitors. And we want to replace any missing values there with 0. Then let's look at profit. If there were any missing values here, because the profit column has floats, we're also going to use a number. Okay, let's look at rating. That is also stored using numerical values. So we'll set that to 0 as well. And finally, we have opening year. And for this one, we're going to set it to, let's say, 2000 as a default value. And there we go. Okay. So now if we take a look at this, you can see we don't have missing values, and where there were missing values, they've been replaced appropriately with the correct data type. Except for daily visitors, which we need to spell correctly. There we go. So as you can see, where we had NaN, we now have 0. If we did have any missing values here, they would have been replaced with unknown. And finally, the opening year has been replaced with 2000, where it was previously unknown as well. We can also fill individual columns. So let's create a code block. Now let's say we want just to access this column, but we have this missing data here. Let's take a look at our zoo. So we have this missing data, NaN, and we want to replace it, let's say, with the median of the daily visitors. So we'll access zoo at the column daily visitors. There we go. Then we're going to fill NA. Then we want to have the median of this. So we once again need to access it, this column, and we're going to use the median function. There we go. Let's break this down really quickly. That was very quick. So we're accessing the column of daily visitors from the zoo dataset. That's this one here. We want to replace any missing values with the median. So first we want to replace missing values. We're going to do that with the fillna method. Then what we're going to do is we're going to access the column one more time so that we can take its mean, and we're going to do that with the median method. So now let's see what that looks like, okay? So as you can see, wherever there was NaN, it's been replaced with the median, which it appears in this case is 370. Okay, pretty simple. Let's say we want to replace the profit here with the mean. So very, very similar procedure. We're going to access the profit column. We're going to use the fillna method to replace the missing values with our own. And then once again, we're going to access that column because we want to get its mean. And we're going to use the method mean to get that value. And now let's check that one more time. And as you can see, every single value has been filled in. And it appears that at the 6th position, NaN, so this would be our mean, 287.5. We can also use the data that's already in our data set to replace the missing values. So there are two main ways of doing this. There are forward fill and backwards fill. So forward fill basically takes the previous data, be that column or row, which we'll take a look at how to do that later, but it takes a look at the previous data and it will pass that data into the next rows. Backwards fill basically does the opposite. As soon as we encounter a missing value, it'll look all the way forward for the next filled in value, and then it'll use that value as the value for the missing value. So let's take a look at forward fill first. And to do that, we're going to need a data set. So I'm just going to print it out real quick. There we go. As you can see, we have some missing values here. So let's take a look at what forward fill looks like. We'll do this by accessing our new data set, which is called weather.fill. Then we're going to use parentheses, and let's print it. There we go. So now, of course. So now we have this data set here, and we can compare it to the previous one. So at position 2, we have an NaN, a temperature, and above it is 14. Keep that in mind. So we'll go to this index here, and as you can see, both of these are now 14. Let's try and find another one. In the third row, in the humidity column, we have an NaN. Above it is 82, As you can see, 82 is repeated here and here. Finally, let's take a look at the wind speed column. We have NaN in the first row and in the sixth. Above them are 10 and 22. As you can see, 10 is repeated here, and so is 22. Let's look at backwards fill. So we'll do the same thing here. Weather.bfill, parentheses. Then let's take a look. Now it does the opposite. So let's look in the same places. Temperature column, position 2. NaN, below it is 13. 13 repeats twice here. Let's go up and take a look at the humidity column. Third position, below it is 85. And 85 is repeated twice. Finally, we'll take a look at the wind speed column, and this one's very important, so take notes. As you can see, in this position here, the first position, the first index, we have NaN, below it is 15, so we should see 15 twice. In the final position, however, we have NaN, which means that there is no position below it for our program to take the value from, or for Pandas to take the value from. So if we go down here, as we can see, the expected result that 15 is doubled occurs. However, the bottom value is still missing, so just keep that in mind. This also goes for forward fill. If there is no value above it, let's say if we had NaN here at the very top of the CSV, then we would not be able to use that value below. So just keep that in mind. There are some edge cases where this will not completely fix your data set. So within backwards fill and forward fill, we can also change the axis. By default, it will be 0, which means that we will inherit from the column above or below, or the row above or below, within the same column. But we can also inherit data from the column to the left or to the right, depending on if it's forward or backwards fill. So we'll just skip over column here because it's the same as doing this. We'll go straight to row, and we'll say weather.forward fill, and then we'll change the axis to 1 and see what that looks like. In this situation, it's not ideal because to the left we have the date column, and obviously that doesn't work very well with the temperature column where we have float values. And if we were to do backwards fill, with axis being 1, we will have a similar issue over here, where we inherit from the weather column in the PM 2.5 column, which also uses float values. So as you can see, we have a string in the wrong column. So it's just a different way of doing the same thing, but keep in mind that depending on which data set you're using, this will be more or less useful. Now we're going to take a look at limit. And what this does is it specifies the maximum number of rows per column which we can fill using fillna. So let's really quickly take a look at a new dataset, flights, assign it to the variable flights, and see what it looks like. So as you can see, we have a number of missing values in the passengers column here. We have 1, 2, 3. So let's really quickly use flights.fillna, and what we're going to do is we're going to set the limit to 2 and see what that looks like. And of course we need to have a value that we're going to replace it with, so let's just say missing. Don't forget the comma. And there we go. So these first 2 values in the passenger column have been replaced with missing, as have the other missing values, except that since we have 3 missing values in the passengers column, the third one is not replaced. It is replaced with NaN. And let's try doing that as well with 1. So copy that over. As you can see, only the first missing value is replaced in each column, which means that for the passengers column, there are 2 missing values. For the departure time column, there is 1 missing value. And for the plane type, there is also 1 missing value in this row. Let's also take a look at in place. So what this does is it allows us to specify if we want to create a new data set when we use the fillna method or if we do not. So what we can do here is we can say passengers flights dot fill and a, we'll say missing, and we'll set in place to true. Okay, and now if we access flights, we see that all of the missing values have been replaced. Now, if we take a look at a previous data set, which we have not changed, we'll see that the values here are still NaN. So this is what it looks like now. And let's just try to access it one more time. This time, as we did with flights, we're going to set in place to true. So zoo dot fill and a. We're going to replace everything that's missing with the word missing, and we're going to set in place to true. And then we're going to access it just to see what we get. And as you can see, it is the same variable that we called previously, except that since we used in place equals true, we didn't create a new data set, but we actually replaced the values in the original data set, as you can see. And that's the end. If you enjoyed that episode, then please make sure to check out the other episodes on the channel, our other series. We have a NumPy series, we have a Python series, and a lot of other series that you can check out as well. So those are just the series before this one. You can also check out our website if you'd like to see not only the source code for this, which is on our GitHub, accessible via the website or via the description, but also if you'd like to see the organized course. And if you liked this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and share, and hit that bell icon if you want to see more of our videos. Thank you very much for watching, and have a lovely day. Bye-bye.